So this is the good question then, good next question, because there's a lot of coaches who agree, like it's about having lots of conversations, and then you need to talk to as many people as possible. A lot of those coaches, they have gone to events, to conferences, to network happenings, to like work. They've been meeting people. So yes, we can set up Zooms with people that we know, but like, how do we get out there in front of people? How do we have those conversations without just like screaming into the social media void? What are some good practices to talk to more people right now that we're all stuck at home?
Yeah, good question. What do you want to share what you're doing, Nikki?
Yeah, I have to admit, I haven't used that direction so far, but I'm kind of at the end of my personal contacts who I can kind of reach out to. So that is very much a burning question on my mind. I mean, I suppose my personal approach would be to kind of seek out communities, be it via Facebook, like groups specifically that I'm a member of, and start to try and engage with people and kind of basically socialize as I would in real life by going to networking events, but in kind of groups that I feel connected to within the kind of cyberspace realm. I mean, that's where my thinking takes me. What do you guys think?
Yeah, groups is one of the strategies. I think groups are really important. So in terms of groups, any coach, and by the way, this is again not something you should be doing as a coach, but I highly recommend coaches to have their own community. And again, it's not about how big the community is. It's about, growing it with numbers that people that are relevant to you, people that, more about quality than quantity. But you can create your own network there, your own little community. It's almost like having your own meetup there, where you're speaking through Facebook, like through a Facebook Live, or you're putting a video there and people are hearing what you're saying. But another thing that I think will be really useful, and this is something that we're experimenting with and works really well, is to just create a Zoom session, like a session on Zoom with all your existing clients, old clients, maybe people that were interested in working with you, and you invite them and you create a lot of value for them, right? So one of my clients did this 2 weeks ago. He got around 20 people and he just said, hey, what about you bring a friend, a family member, or a colleague? One of the clients brought her sister, and the sister said, hey, you know what, this is really good. And he approached the coach and said, I'm interested in working together. And the thing is, it's not so much just thinking like, well, this is going to get me new clients, but this is what will serve your existing clients, your old clients. And then you just make it fun. And every week, even if it starts with just 4 people, every week you ask them, and you can do this, for example, on a weekly basis, and you ask them, hey, bring one more person with you, someone that you think will benefit from this, and it can just grow.
And what kind of stuff would you talk about? Like, I mean, my first reaction was like, my God, inviting all of my previous clients into a group. That, like, I'm thinking confidentiality. I'm thinking like, who would do that? But I also thought probably a lot of people would follow up on that. And then my next question inside was, well, what kind of stuff would you be talking about? Because this is kind of like bringing value, serving. I'm imagining this is like more of a training or a talk, or talking about something that might help them in these kind of times, something psychological, or what do you have in mind?
Well, I think we have choices here, right?
I'm glad.
I would personally, like I've seen people do this and they just teach for an hour and then they do like 10 minutes Q&A. I would do it the other way around, right? I would teach something like a few principles, maybe something that can be useful in this time of crisis, right? Maybe 10, 15 minutes, maybe it's like an activity, that will serve them, right? And then I would open it up to Q&A and open it up to coaching, because that's what we coaches are good at. Some of us are good at teaching, right? We have experience teaching, but we want to coach. And it's not about, getting everyone to coach, because you might have 20, 30 people in the room. You just want to coach a few people, but you want to slow down. And I think it's really great, because what they will do when people are watching you coach, they're getting an experience of you coaching. They want more. right? And also
Right, so
then
one person would get coached by you, so it's just like a spotlight on somebody. They have a
exactly.
question, and then you would put your coaching hat on and kind of work with that person in front of the other people.
Yeah, personally, what I like to do sometimes is slow down before I actually answer the question, and and ask the group, would this be useful for anyone else? And I see that most people in the chat will say yes, yes, yes. So get everyone engaged,
Mm-hmm.
right? But again, it's about, because when you're teaching, often you're sharing things that you think will be useful.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're coaching, they're bringing what they need to the table, right? And often people bring things to the table that others need as well, or is relevant to others. But I think it's also useful at the same time, people are very reactive. They're consuming so much, right? Normally, I don't do a lot of mindset work with our clients, but I think right now mindset is so important. Like people are over consuming, right? So that's naturally making them more reactive. So one thing that we've done at home is that, hey, the first 2 hours of the day and the last 2 hours of the day, no news, no devices. And by the way, we're not perfect. We still sometimes do it, but we're just reminding each other. And what that's done is brought a bit of control back in our lives. Right? So little things like this, just giving a little exercise to that group, and it's sharing things that have worked for yourself.
And I think a key here is that these are people that already have a relationship with you, that already know and trust you. So they're most likely to join such an event or such a group.
Exactly.
It's not that you're putting something out there on social media and creating a new group with completely new clients or completely new prospects or completely new audience, based on what might be useful to people. And they're like, oh yeah, that's useful to me. But these are people that already know you. So it's much more likely that they come and join. And if you don't have existing clients, then you could always do that for people that that know you. Could be a group of friends that you mentioned, like inviting a family member or something. And this is how these kind of groups can really organically grow.
Exactly. And sometimes it's just mentioning that hey, I grow my business to word of mouth, an invitation. So I would really appreciate that, if you got benefit from this, share the recording with one more person.
Yeah. Sorry, that sounds really genuine, because like the first thought I had is like asking somebody else to bring somebody else. That sounds a lot like Landmark. I mean, they provide a lot of value. That's a completely different kind of conversation, because they are really powerful, but they also do some weird shit.
But you'll
it's
be
like,
surprised.
oh, now go out and bring me 2 friends, and then we can have
but you'll be surprised, right? Actually, people are very willing to do that, because it's almost like passing it forward.
That's why Landmark works. They provide a lot of value for people, and they're excited to get out there and get their friends involved.
Yeah, exactly. Because hey, I experienced this amazing transformation in this session. It's like, hey, I want to bring my partner, because she won't listen to me, right? It's like, let's bring her here. Maybe I know, like, my friend's struggling. He's living alone. So it's just, we can invite people, right? And I think as long as we're genuine and we come from a place of service, I think people are very willing to grow, to help you grow. And personally, I wouldn't do any selling, do any offers, but that's, again, I would personally not do that. But I would just, give people an idea of, where they can go next. Like, hey, if you want to be part of the community, we have a free community, and that's just creating an invitation into our world.
Yeah, and I reckon you don't often have to actively sell or put a call to action in there, because if somebody feels that was really useful, and I would have loved to be in the spotlight, but without everybody listening in, they tend to know where to find you, and they will reach out for work. But I guess some people will argue differently. They would say, no, people do need a nudge. What do you guys think about that?
I think sometimes it is useful to just give people a little bit of a nudge. But I personally like, just kind of, look, I like playing my cards open on the table. And this is something that I struggled with in the first year of me being a coach. I used to just give in the hope that someone would just, just message me and like say, hey, that was really useful. Can I hire you? But it doesn't happen. I think people in general are very passive. So what I like to do more than just making direct offers is weave in stories. So if I'm sharing a principle, I'll say like, hey, this is what I've done and this is what I do with clients. So I'll constantly talk about me coaching people, so people get an understanding of, okay, this is a coach, and you can start with a little introduction, like, hey, this is the kind of work I do, and so with anything I share, I want to connect it to a story of a client. I like to connect it to just make it more real in terms of what is possible through coaching. My own, me being coached by my coach, I'll share stories of that. I'll share stories of clients, what they've experienced. But then, like, I personally what I like is this principle of giving in public and selling in private. So there will be usually an invitation. Hey, if you get benefit from this, we have a free community. And if you are interested in one of our programs, you can find it over there. But I won't necessarily mention it, right? But this, by the way, like I'm very happy to, if I have a specific webinar that's just really focused on selling, I'll be very clear about the offer. But the example that I'm giving here is more just creating like a group that's in service of existing clients, old clients, and then they bring their friends and family. In that group, I wouldn't be very direct. I would be very indirect. But what we do, like something that I recommend, for example, I recommend the coaches that I work with, is to do like a monthly webinar. Not anything like fancy, but just to create a Zoom invitation where they teach something of value, but there's a specific offer at the end. Where they say, hey, these are, for example, 3 steps I take people through to help them go from anxiety to, being confident and calm, right? And then they say, hey, you want to know more, or you want some help putting this stuff into practice? Here's a bit of details about my program, right?
I think
the
line gets quite, sorry.
Yeah, so I think there's different ways of doing this.
Yeah, I think the line gets quite blurry with these things, that we're starting to train people, and that they come into the coaching relationship with an expectation that we teach them the system to go from anxiety to anxiety free. When, like, I guess there are a lot of coaches out there who work like that, who are quite directive and have a strong teaching or mentoring hat on, and that's fair play. That's of great value. It's just not the way that I work, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners or viewers, they would also not particularly work like that, because they wouldn't want people to come in with the expectation that we're going to teach them. And if they meet us and get to know us through us teaching them something, they will probably expect that going forward, unless we contract very, very carefully.
Yeah, and it's again about, I'm just giving examples, but it's about what kind of coach you are, right? If you're a one-on-one coach that does very specific type of coaching, then this kind of Zoom, like a Zoom session like that, can be very useful, because people get an experience of how you coach people, right? So you could just coach 3 people, but you can just go really deep with them.
Yeah, you don't need to teach anything. You can just start with, okay, so we have like some spotlight sessions here. If you don't mind sharing in front of the group, agree for confidentiality, don't record anything, these kind of things, but just give people an experience. That's fine. And if you're the kind of coach who uses a lot of A to B in 10 steps, and I'm going to guide you through the process kind of things, then you can do that with somebody. So it's really quite open, the format, to allowing you to be who you are and work the way that you want to work. The concept of getting people together to witness this, without having to pay for it, and then being able to follow up and deepen as you go forward. I think that's really valuable. One thing I wanted to underline, and I'll come back to rather, perhaps just highlight, is the element of storytelling. I've again and again, I'm realizing how powerful storytelling is, and how much of a learnable skill it is. So right now I'm reading a book, doing an audible course almost. I thought it was a book. It's more like a program to learn about storytelling. Because it's been the main mode of transmitting knowledge in the history of humankind. And if you look at the last 10 TED Talks you watched, it probably 9 of them started out with a story, and then introducing a concept based on that story, or an insight, or an important, meaningful learning. you know, but like it's so grounded in storytelling. And I realized like if somebody came up to me at a network event once and asked me what I do, and I told him what I do, and he's like, oh cool, tell me a story. And I was like, oh shit. And I kind of got the story together from like a recent client that I worked with in the leadership position, and it was not a great story. I mean, the story of the person was incredible. I just didn't know how to tell it in a way that was really engaging, you know. And we all have those kind of stories, either from us or from our clients or from coaching clients of other coaches even. You know, we can promote coaching without having done a lot of coaching ourselves, you know, because there's powerful stories of people who go to see a coach and then their life changes as a result in small or large ways, you know. So we can tell stories of the value of coaching without having years and years of experience and super powerful clients who change their lives. So, but to learn to put these kind of things into stories is, I think, really important. And part of me in the beginning felt a bit disingenuous of like kind of almost rehearsing stories or learning to tell them, you know. And I still haven't quite done that because I'm only just kind of starting to dig into this course. But we all have stories we tell over and over again, you know, things that happened to us in our lives. And when we came back from a holiday, you know, 3 weeks after you came back from like, I mean, I've been on honeymoon in Japan, and I realized there's a few stories I told from that holiday that I started telling over and over again. And it got better every time I told it, you know. And I think that's the same thing as when we tell stories from clients, you know, obviously confidentially and, you know, protecting the anonymity of the client. But there's a lot of amazing stories that we can tell that would really encourage people to work with a coach. I'm often don't really care if it's me, you know, as long as they work with a coach. You know, I want them to find a coach that they feel good with and that is a good match for them, you know, which is not always me. But I'm passionate about people working with coaches, you know, working on themselves and going on these kind of journeys. And I think if you communicate that in a story, it's a very powerful tool to get people excited to go and do some work.
I agree. Okay. Would you like to share what book that is?
I don't know. Wait, I can.
Because after you told us that, I think the listeners
we have to
know.
know.
I am literally on chapter 2, and I don't actually like the way that she's telling stories. But
oh no, that's tragic.
Yeah, I think it's about she has this kind of slam poetic way of like over accentuating certain parts of it, and I can see how she's a very skilled storyteller, but there's something about the combination of her voice and her like I just don't connect with her as a person. But I'm learning lots about how to tell a good story, you know, what are the important bits in a story. I still need to connect with a storyteller, and in this case that just isn't really the case. But I'm sure she fascinates lots of people. Like sometimes we just don't connect with people. That's fine. The book is called The Art of Storytelling, From Parents to Professionals by Hannah B. Harvey.
Sounds great, to be honest. Yeah. No, I think everything you've just said sounds super powerful. I mean, getting better at storytelling and integrating that into the way I present my work and kind of included my marketing for my work, that would be something. I mean, I've read about it and how powerful it is as well, and that's something I'd really like to work toward. I guess here as a beginning coach, you know, my situation is I currently still don't feel I have stories to tell of clients kind of that I've had, because the interactions I've had with them have been fairly limited to about like 5 sessions, and there haven't been any major breakthroughs, even though, you know, I can say that each session in its own right has been very powerful. So I
tell the
feel
minor ones.
What's that?
Tell the minor breakthroughs, you know, because you can pick up on a small shift, an insight. Somebody has realized something and now they're doing something differently. It doesn't have to be major. And I think that's what's holding a lot of people back from telling good stories, that they feel it needs to be something major. That it starts with our own story, you know. You don't need to have gone from rags to riches. You don't need to have the Tony Robbins life story or the working through trauma and addiction and now you're a millionaire. You know, you can tell a story about how you've realized something and now you're kinder, you know, or how you've met somebody, and before you would relate to them in this way and you would be like, I don't know, hostile, or, you know, think ill of them.
Okay.
And because of a small encounter, now you could relate to that person and see a bit of that person in yourself. You know, it doesn't have to be big.
I like it. Yeah. Okay, that's something to consider for sure. Yeah. Yeah, and your book sounds great as well. Definitely. I think there's so much in the presentation and how, we can make it just so much more powerful if we know a good way of kind of presenting it.
What Hannah recommended is to have a little diary, or like a notebook with you, like a sketchbook for your stories, where after end of every day or end of every week, you think back and reflect over the day or the week, and you pick out those meaningful moments. You know? And then you put details, you jot down little bits about what you remember surrounding this event. And then you look and identify for universal themes, you know, things that other people might be able to relate to. Particularly useful when it comes to coaches, when you have your target group in mind, so to speak, you know, with kind of business speak, the people that you want to help, the people that you tend to offer your services to. And this might be just human beings, you know, there's coaches who just work with humans, you know, that was what I started out with. But it could also be very specific. But if you figure out what those themes are that they care about, that they relate to, that maybe are a common challenge in their lives or in their careers, in their work, in their relationships. And you could also start with those themes and then think back to what were meaningful moments around these themes. And then you can start putting some stories together.
Cool.
Yeah, I think it's an important skill. And I think, you know, one thing that is important for us to realize as coaches is that we are business owners. We're not just coaches. Right? And storytelling is just one of the skills that you need to have as a business owner, just like marketing and selling. And I think that's for me where the disconnect was. My first year as a coach, I didn't see myself as a business owner. It was just like, I want more coaching clients, where can I get that? Right? And I think if you focus on just developing a few key business skills, our business will start growing, and we will become, you know, as we coach more people, we become better coaches.
What would you say are the key business skills that a coach needs? I know you could probably talk about this for hours, but like, if you were to kind of bundle it.
Yeah, I think, well, the key business skills, I think number one is marketing. So for coaches, to simplify it, it just means serving potential clients, right? I personally would say even coaching potential clients. The way I sell, I involve people through coaching them, right? So I don't necessarily use a sales script or sales template, but serving potential clients, marketing. The second thing is selling itself.
But marketing, hold on, marketing is, as I understand it, is more reaching the right kind of people.
Yeah, so there, I mean, marketing is much bigger as well. Like if you want to think it from a generic business perspective, you could say marketing is three things: lead generation, so bringing new people into your world, nurturing those leads, and then like, you know, building the relationship. And part of marketing, I think is also building authority, you know. But if we simplify it, I think for, you know, a starting coach or coach that just qualified, I think it's serving potential clients, because when you serve new people, that's in a way like you're building the relationship, right?
And I think that's super important. That it made a big difference for me to stop thinking about who are my customers that are going to buy my stuff, to who do I want to help, you know, and what do they need help with, because that kind of puts the focus on other people. And I'm not thinking, how can I gain something from this, but how can I serve people, and who would I like to help? Who are people who would need my help?
Yeah, exactly. So, but yeah, then we have selling, you know, and I think selling is essential. It's at the core of any business. And in terms of, for us, I mean, there's different ways coaches are doing it. I know some people are doing discovery calls or like one call and then they share their program. Another way of doing it is to kind of following the prosperous coach philosophy. Is where you're basically enrolling people through coaching, but without going into too much detail, it's marketing, selling, the delivery. Often we think the delivery is just coaching, but the delivery can be done in a lot of different ways. Whereas coaching is one-on-one, can be done in group format and over workshops, right? Online courses. And then I think something that's, we don't talk a lot about is running an actual business, like the operation side of it and finances. But that's actually, it becomes more and more important as the business grows. But I think also even just understanding that on a basic level is important for coaches, because even if you're just making 30,000-40,000 a year, you're going to pay tax. So it's understanding, well, hey, I need to put a bit of money away for tax, right? I learned that after 3 years, by the way. Right?
Ouch.
Yeah. So we got a really big fine from HRMC. Like for me, like integrity is really important. We do everything in the right way. Right now we have a accountant and a finance manager, right? And obviously you don't need that as a beginner coach, but you need to understand finances. How much money do you need to put away for tax? How much money do you need to put away for your own personal growth, or maybe to invest in your business? So marketing, selling, how you deliver, and then I would say finances is key, and then maybe operations.
I was amazed at how little I knew about these things up until just a few years ago, and it's so important, and I'm so passionate about I do deliver a lot of coach training, and most of the training I see does not teach people, like coaches, essential skills that they need to be a coach. Because the vast majority of coaches will not have a job where they're employed by a company. The coaching agencies and directories are growing, because you don't need to do the marketing, and often you do need to do a little bit of selling. Depends on how the agency is set up. But coaches are hungry to not have to do the business stuff. But the vast majority of coaches, they're going to have to be entrepreneurs. And I think they only deserve, in a good coaching program, they would have at least a module or, some time set apart to teach them some essential business skills. And most coaching programs, unfortunately, don't.
Yeah, I personally think it should be part of, we have a lot of big schools in the UK, we have them in America, but unfortunately, most of the schools, they do like a little weekend to, get your business off the ground, but it doesn't really do justice towards it. And I think what's really important is to just have a simple guide, because a lot of businesses, you can read generic business books, but coaching is almost like a business in itself. Like it's a very different type of business,
Is it? How?
Well, for me, like the reason I say that is because, coaching for me is not the same as, selling something like, I don't know, like selling a phone or selling a Hoover. And a lot of times when I started coaching, my first business coach was basically like, hey, this is what you do, and this is the process. And I think, for me, it didn't work. And I see this is where a lot of coaches struggle, is basically where they're just selling people, saying, hey, what are your problems? Okay, I can help you with these problems. Here's the solution.
Right? Yeah, very problem focused. Like, what's the problem? Here's my solution, right?
Yeah, and there's no relationship there, right? And I think personally that's where unfortunately a lot of coaches struggle is, they know they can help the person. They've, kind of listened to their problems and said, you know what, I can help them, but they don't actually coach them. Right? And there's a disconnect there.
Hey everybody! If you found this conversation helpful for you and your coaching practice, then there's a couple of ways that you can support the podcast and stay up to date with future episodes. Obviously, you can subscribe here on YouTube if that's your jam. If you want to get it straight into your inbox, never miss an episode, there's a link in the description to can sign up for our mailing list. you can leave us a review or follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and come join us on Facebook. We'll get the conversation going there. Obviously, leave us a comment. You can support us on Patreon. And any way you choose to do that, tell a friend, whatever you want to do. We really appreciate it, and we hope you get a lot out of it. So see you next time.